Ladies and gentlemen, we now like to start with the presentation of fiscal year 2018 first quarter financial results by Nissan Motor Company. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us despite your very busy and demanding schedule. We appreciate your kind participation. Then, we would like to first invite Mr. Tagawa, Corporate Vice President, to share with you the results, the financial results for the first quarter. Mr. Tagawa, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for the announcement of Nissan's first quarter earnings for fiscal year 2018. My name is George Tagawa, Corporate Vice President, Investor Relations. Today, I will outline our global sales performance and financial results for the 3-month ending June 30th, 2018. And following the presentation, I will be happy to take your questions. For the first quarter fiscal year 2018, the increase in sales volume in other markets, as well as our purchasing cost reduction efforts, offset the negative impact caused by the decline in unit sales in the United States, where we continue to enhance the quality of sales and the increase in R&D investment. However, it was not enough to offset the negative impact caused by the rising commodity prices, which have been increasing since last fiscal year 2017, and foreign exchange headwinds. As a result, revenue and operating profit decreased for the quarter. For the 3-month period ending June 30th, consolidated net revenues were 2.72 trillion yen and operating profit totaled 109.1 billion yen, which equates to an operating margin of 4.0%. Net income was 115.8 billion yen, which represents a 4.3% net margin. And free cash flow for the automotive business was negative 31.5 billion yen, and we ended the period with an automotive net cash position of 1.55 trillion yen. Turning to our sales performance for the 3-month ending June 30th, the global total industry volume, or TIV, rose 4% to 24.13 million units. Nissan sales volume decreased in North America and Europe, and increased in regions including China, the Middle East, and Latin America, where we're performing well. However, our total unit sales decreased 3% to 1.31 million units. As a result, our market share fell 0.4 percentage points to 5.4%. Looking at our key markets in detail. In Japan, TIV decreased 1% to 1.19 million units. Nissan sales decreased 0.8% to 130,000 units, resulting in a stable market share of 10.9%. Strong demand for registered vehicles, including Serena with e-Power, which was introduced this past February, and the new Nissan Leaf, which went on sale last year, lifted sales, whereas K-car sales declined due to the timing of new model changes. This resulted in a slight decrease in retail sales, which was in line with the market trends. In China, where our sales performance is measured on a calendar year basis, TIV from January through March was up 2.3% to 6.7 million units. Nissan sales increased 6.9% to 336,000 units, representing a market share of 5.0%, an increase of 0.3 percentage points from the comparable period in the prior year. The growth was driven by strong sales of Nissan models, including the Kicks, a new model for the China lineup, as well as all new Navara, X-Trail, and Tiana. Furthermore, Venucia D60, which was introduced in China this year, contributed to the continued growth of the Venucia brand. As China is reported with a 3-month lag, we also have sales figure of the second quarter period. TIV increased 8.2% to 6.44 million units. Our sales rose 14.3% to 384,000 units, resulting in a market share of 6.0%, an increase of 0.4 percentage points. For the 6-month period to the end of June, TIV increased 5.1%, while our sales significantly outperformed the market and increased 10.7% to 720,000 units. As a result, our market share increased 0.2 percentage points to 5.4%. And going forward, the new Terra, a frame-based SUV launched in April, is expected to contribute to our growth for the remainder of the fiscal year. In the United States, TIV increased 1.8% to 4.5 million units. Nissan sales declined 9.5% to 265,000 units, equivalent to a market share of 8.1%. We continue to work on normalizing sales and improving dealer inventory levels. In the month ahead, In the month ahead, the new Infiniti QX50 and Kicks will enhance the model cycle, along with the new Ultima, which will go on sale in autumn. We will continue our efforts to implement operational improvements toward the second half of this fiscal year. In Canada, Nissan's unit sales were up 3.4% to 43,000 units. Market share was 7.0%. In Mexico, Nissan sales decreased 15.7% to 74,000 units, while we maintained our number one position with a market share of 21.6%. In Europe, including Russia, Nissan sales totaled 162,000 units, a decrease of 12.7%. Excluding Russia, Nissan sales decreased 14.4% to 139,000 units, representing a market share of 2.9%. This is primarily due to the decline in sales volume in the United Kingdom, where Nissan has a strong presence, and the focus on profitability, including the reduction of fleet sales. In Russia, our sales decreased 0.6% to 23,000 units, equivalent to a market share of 5.0%. In other markets, Nissan sales increased 6.6% to 200,000 units. Unit sales in Asia and Oceania decreased 7.4% to 76,000 units. Sales in Latin America, where there is a strong demand for Kicks, were up 26.4% to 55,000 units. While the industry continues to decline in the Middle East, our unit sales increased 4.0% to 44,000 units. Sales in Africa and others rose by 26.3% to 25,000 units. Moving to our financial results. As with previous quarters, Nissan is representing its financial performance under the equity accounting method for our joint venture in China. On this basis, consolidated net revenues totaled 2.72 trillion yen. Operating profit totaled 109.1 billion yen, which equates to an operating margin of 4.0%. Ordinary profit, which includes the performance of affiliate companies such as joint venture in China, was 158.9 billion yen. Net income was 115.8 billion yen, which represents a 4.3% margin. Looking at the operating profit movement, foreign exchange had a negative impact of 19.3 billion yen, and the increase in raw material prices resulted in a negative impact of 27 billion yen. Excluding these two external factors, our operating profit was nearly flat year-on-year with an increase of 2.1 billion yen. Regarding the company's performance, the negative impact caused by the decrease in sales volume, particularly in the United States, and the increase in investments for the future, including R&D and manufacturing expenses, was offset by positive factors, including cost items such as purchasing cost reduction efforts and product enrichment, increases in sales volume in other markets, as well as decrease in marketing selling expenses. If we look at volume mix and marketing selling expenses by the region, the U.S. is negative by 40 billion yen, and other regions was positive by 23 billion yen. On a management pro forma basis, which includes the proportional consolidation of a Chinese joint venture, our key indicators showed that net revenues totaled 3.03 trillion yen, operating profit was 154.4 billion yen, which equates to an operating margin of 5.1%, net income totaled 115.8 billion yen. Automotive free cash flow was negative 15.4 billion yen. We ended the period with automotive net cash position of 1.81 trillion yen. In summary, our results for the quarter were unfavorable as we faced a number of challenges, including declining sales in North America and Europe, and an increase in commodity prices and foreign exchange headwinds. Nissan remains focused on enhancing the quality of sales, particularly in the United States, and maintaining strict cost discipline globally in order to increase profitability. We are also determined to address the issues that came to light in Japan since last year. Nissan will continue to reinforce compliance fully across the board and restore customer confidence. For the full fiscal year, we are maintaining our previous guidance and continue to project a full-year dividend of 57 yen per share, a 7.5% increase from the prior year. Thank you. I will be pleased to take your questions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We would now like to go on to the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please wait for the microphone to be brought over to our staff. Please be sure to speak through the microphone. And may we ask that you could limit yourself to 2 questions at a time. We would appreciate your kind cooperation. So we would now like to begin the Q&A session. So we'd like to start with the person in the second row, please. Thank you very much. Okada from Nikkei. I would like to ask a question about the performance. Well, this is the first quarter, and I think it's in line with the broad consensus. But having said that, for the full year, as far as this first quarter is concerned, is this the bottom, do you think, in relation to this full year? And with regard, I believe the key is the rebuilding of business or recovery in the United States. But what about the trends pertaining to the incentive? And also the initiatives you're taking in order to reinforce your sales and market. Is this in line with your projection? If you could share with us your thoughts about these topics, I would appreciate it. And also, if I could further add one other point, if I may. The commodity prices you mentioned is one of the factors that has pushed up the cost for your company overall. But the so-called trade friction, is this impact of the tariff imposition on steels and aluminum, and also between the trade frictions between U.S., Japan, U.S., China, and Europe? But has this had impact on your business strategy? Could this push up your costs going forward? Can you envision these points, please? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So for the first quarter, how do we evaluate the circumstances, including the normalization in U.S. and incentives trend in U.S.? For the first quarter, U.S. and Europe suffered from the sales decrease, which was large as an impact. In the rest of the regions, not only China, but we enjoyed growth in Brazil, the Middle East, Thailand. So far in these regions, we had difficulties, but these are picking up. These were the pieces of good news, and purchasing cost reduction also was a contributor. But as we said in the presentation, unfortunately, raw materials price hiked and the forex were not fully offset by these good news. So we believe that the results were the difficult ones. How about the progress rate over the full year? Retail in the first quarter, the retail volume in first quarter was 22% in terms of progress rate, and revenue was 23% progress rate against the full year guidance, and 20% plus for operating profit, and net income was 20% or so. So US and in Europe, we are working to normalize the sales. And also with the new model impact, this will contribute, especially in the latter half of the year. So if we think about it, we are on track toward the full year guidance. And how about the US? In US, inventories are normalized. Dealer inventories normalization as well as the central inventories normalization are underway. Globally, I said there's a reduction of inventories by 30,000 units. So globally, the inventories dropped by 30,000 units. If we look at only US, 68,000 units are how much we reduce. And this inventory reduction, and we try to be ready and get rid of all the old model year before we introduce a new model year. In this aspect, we are in a good shape. However, in the first quarter, we don't still have a new model. And partially, for example, Altima. With regards to the cars which we are waiting for the new model, we are spending a lot of incentives on this. And for the fleet sales, compared to last year, first quarter, the incentive is a bit higher. So the doesn't mean the revenue per unit fell largely, but the selling and marketing expenses, as I said in the profit variance, the selling and marketing expenses Because of the volume decrease, there's a drop in the amount of selling and marketing expenses. However, in the second quarter, there will not be a big change from what we have seen in Q1. We will continue working, and after second half, when we introduce new cars, we will see enhancements in profit and enhancement in the level of incentives. And what else? Commodity prices, as well as the trade friction impact. If we look at only financial results, full year, the raw material price hike is about 80 billion yen negative. That's what our interpretation full year. And 27 billion is how much we suffered from in the first quarter. And if you think about the forecast going forward, we believe that commodity price hike may be in excess of our initial expectation. And out of this commodity price hike, what is caused by trade issues? For example, in June, starting from June, in fact, because of Section 232, steel and aluminum are under tariffs. But aluminum and steels many of them are localized. In our case, some are imported, of course. So the impact in quarter one is not zero, but it's very limited, almost nil for the first quarter. How about second quarter and onwards? It depends on how much the tariffs will continue. And even without the tariffs, there's a commodity price hike purely. As some of you may know, last night GM, Ford, Chrysler announced in the financial results there is a big negative impact from the commodity price hike. So if you look at the latest trend, compared to 80 billion yen anticipated full year, maybe there may be an additional negative contribution from the commodity price hike. And lastly, trade friction in US, Europe, and China. Well, in terms of a comment, authorities or through automobile associations, we are raising concerns via these organizations. So there's no change or addition to what we have seen. But globally, we have been promoting localization. So even if it's a trade issue or a forex headwind, or differences in the circumstance at that region, we would like to pursue localization, increase local contents. Anyhow, this is effective to solve any issues that may rise. So irrespective of the result, we will promote localization. That's our intent. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to next question.
Sean McLean, Street Journal. Sorry for the question in English. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the trade side of things. If you could maybe explain a little bit about any strategy that Nissan is considering in anticipation of any actions. You must have plans ahead of time. Some of your competitors, Toyota, for example, is talking about discontinuing some models in the US. Is Nissan considering such an action, or what sort of plans are you taking to deal with any eventuality?
Wall Street Journal Sean San's question is about trade. Is there any specific strategy or action that we are considering for the trade issue? For example, Toyota is thinking of some action. How about Nissan? That was his question. With regards to this point, yes, I said that promoting localization is the best solution. But as of today, what kind of changes will take place, or especially for the Section 232, we never know how this will turn out, because yesterday there was a talks between Mr. Juncker and Trump. Even for Europe, we never know whether the tariffs will be imposed or not. So things are uncertain now. So it's not time to make a specific decision or create a new plant, for example. But whether it's a steel, aluminum components, or NAFTA, or between US and China, whatever the matter is, we are running different simulations. So we say when this happens, this is the action that may be affected. This is a consequence, and different scenarios are considered internally. But as of today, we are not making a specific decision before the authorities make their final decision. Okay, thank you. Moving on, the person in the middle row, please. Yomiuri Shimbun, my name is Ishibashi. Fuel economy and emission exhaust, there was a misconduct around this matter. In the first quarter, you don't see an impact because the announcement was made in July. Going forward, how do you see the impact in sales in Japan? And what are the countermeasures or how much spending you are anticipating? How does this impact your bottom line or performance? And Emlet ordered you to give a report in about a month. So where are you in terms of progress about this?
排ガス
Yes, exhaust emission. The impact in sales in Japan? As you said, in the first quarter, there's no impact. Or in the financial statement that we are announcing at the time of the final inspection last year, we are not reckoning provision as we have done last fall, because for this recent incident we are not conducting a recall, or at least we don't believe that we need a recall. So as of today, there's no provision for recall or big additional spending which we need a provision. That's not what we have in mind. And where are we in terms of sales performance in Japan? The order intake today from the 1st of July up till this week, 2 days before, according to the report that I got, the order intake, in fact, compared to prior year is increasing. Naturally, in Western Japan, there's a torrential rain which decreased the demand. But on the 9th of July, after we made the press conference, partially some of the showroom traffic at the dealers fell in some of the outlets. But today, things are normalized. So order intake compared to prior year it increased by about 5% or so. So in looking at the latest circumstances, we don't see a big impact. However, going forward, Nissan brand or the regaining the confidence, that's what we are working on as one team to minimize any negative impact. That's our intention. And the report to Emlet in 1 month. The third party is involved in the investigation. So we are on track. We are looking at the historic circumstances, training inspectors, interviewing people. So when can we make a report specifically? This is still under coordination with the authority. So when the time is clear, I will let you know.
ありがとうございます。
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else with a question? Yes.
科学
My name is Aka from the Kagaku Kogonyo Nippon. The other day, Meti said that in 2015, Japanese-made cars will be all electrified, and they are thinking of the actions to make it true. And your representative was there. So could you make a comment on this policy? Nissan, what are you counting on? How does it impact your sales? That's my question. Yes, thank you for your question. Yes. Zero emission leadership is what we have as a goal. For example, in EV or investment in infrastructure is what we have been involved. In the past decade or so, we have been taking many actions according to this goal. However, so far, with regards to EV, 10 years ago or 8 years ago or 7 years ago, across nation, there was not big trend or big tide towards the EV. But now the authority is saying that by 2050, they are trying to reduce 90% of the greenhouse gas, or 100% will be electrified vehicles by 2015. So specific actions are starting. This is not only about mere subsidies, coordination with the global community. That's what the authority has in mind. So we would like to reinforce the ongoing activities. So far in EV, Nissan Leaf, so 340,000 units on a cumulative basis. So across the world, we are top brand in EV market. So we would like to reinforce these ongoing initiatives. And if you talk about electric vehicles, e-power is part of electrified vehicles. So by combining different technologies, because there's a support from the authorities, which is very encouraging. So as a company, we would like to accelerate the ongoing initiatives. So now the environment is ready to do that.
はい
Okay, thank you very much.
はい
Yes, moving to the next question, please.
東洋
Toyo Keizai, Kishimoto is speaking. Talking about the EV, the other day, Automotive Energy Supply, ASC, battery company, sale to Chinese entity was cancelled. As of today, do you have, by selling AC and sourcing battery from outside, this policy remains unchanged? That's my first part of the question. And as of today, the reason for the cancellation was the shortage of fund. If the fund is short today, if you want to construct new plant in China and make investment, there may be a major concern around this idea. So going forward, mainly around GSR, are you going to continue negotiating with the buyer? Are you looking for a new buyer for this?
ご質問
Yes, thank you for your question. Yes, as you said, the negotiation with GSR has been cancelled. I'm not sure. The short of fund is on the GSR side, so this does not directly impact us. And going forward, should we have the same kind of transaction with other entities or not? That's what we are discussing within ourselves. So once we are ready and decide, we will let you know, make an announcement.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
Hi, Automotive News no Hans des.
My name's Hans from Automotive News. I'll ask in English if I may.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the condition of the U.S. market going ahead. I think you said you've reduced the inventories by 68,000 units in the first quarter and 30,000 globally. When do you expect inventories to be in a realm that you think is appropriate? And what is that level when you achieve it? When can we expect that to kind of even out, a normalization in the U.S. market?
はい、
Yes, thank you for your question. Well, Hans from Automotive News. The question was as follows: the outlook for the U.S. market, in particular in relation to inventory, 68,000 inventory reduced. Be it the first quarter as we go on to the second quarter, what is the most optimal level of inventory? I believe that was the gist of the question. So I talked about 30,000 units reduction earlier. It's actually in comparison with the first quarter, in comparison with the previous year in the first quarter, and reduced to 30,000 units on a global basis. Now, if we take a look at the U.S., in the first quarter of the previous year, in comparison with the first quarter, inclusive of the dealer inventory, we saw a reduction by 68,000 units. Now, in comparison with fiscal 2017, which is only 3 months ago, in the United States, inventory went down by as much as 28,000 units, primarily in the dealer inventory. So the outlook for the future. So we have models, well, there'll be a switchover of models from this summer onwards. So as we go on to the second quarter, it's not so much the reduction at the absolute level. It's simply that the substance and the contents of the inventory, we want to reduce the older models, I guess. So even through the second quarter, until the end of September this year, I believe they will continue with their efforts to normalize the inventory level. Yeah, as for Kicks, this was already launched as a new model, as a new car at the end of June. But others will come online in the second quarter, in the second half. So by the time that we switch to new models, we hope that our inventory structure will be much more leaner. That is the objective of our efforts that we're undertaking at this moment.
はい。産経新聞の
Sankei Shimbun, my name is Takahashi. Earlier, you talked about, there were questions about the trade frictions, and I will be putting on top of this, especially the additional tariffs in U.S., which is 25%. That's what some people are saying. If this is imposed, how does it impact you? And as an emergency, are you going to do pricing action or localization that you were referring to? What kind of actions are considered? Yes, thank you for your question. Yes, if there's 25% tariffs on vehicles in U.S., and I think there'll be an imposed on components which are imported, I think the impact is significant. For example, in U.S., the local entities, according to their estimate, it's a rough estimate, of course. In import cars, this is $6,000 of cost increase per unit. Or even with the localized cars, with the import of parts, there's a $2,000 cost up. And if this is, we cannot price everything, can we? Or we cannot terminate sales. So each car maker will be taking their own strategy or approach. So I can't say what we are going to do specifically, and we don't even know when this will happen. So we will continue working on localization. Whether it's a parts localization or vehicle localization, we would be ready to take any actions required. But specifically, what kind of policy are we going to adopt? I would like to refrain from commenting on that. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, moving on. NHK Hayakawa is speaking now. Yesterday, there was the talk between EU and Mr. Trump, President Trump, and tariffs, vehicle tariffs. There were not specific comments about vehicle and traffics. What's your reaction? Are you relieved? And another one, earlier you said that you are pursuing localization. If there's a tariffs on automobiles, you are going to localize. In the future, does it impact or translate to less employment in Japan and less production in Japan? Am I right to think it like this? Yesterday, the talks between Europe and US at the conference, as Hayakawa-san mentioned, there was no specific comment about automobiles. And am I relieved? For example, if the talks broke down and the EU will suddenly impose the retaliatory tariff, if that's better than that. But now, as I don't think the risk is totally eliminated, we need to watch carefully what will go on. And localization. Unlike the old days, several decades ago, it doesn't mean that we will produce what we are producing in Japan now in US, because we have Mexican production as well as Japanese production and South Korean production, which are the vehicles that are sold in US, and some are produced in UK. So within the region, these are we have a complex transaction. So, for example, if it depends on how the tariff will look like in U.S. and how the NAFTA will do and how the relationship between U.S. and China will evolve, there are different factors to watch out. And the most preferable scenario, what's the most preferable scenario is what we need to consider as well, especially the production of passenger vehicles. Are we going to construct a new plant? After we decide investment, it will take time to construct a plant. So for this matter, as of today, we are not, it's premature to prepare anything specific. But for Japan, we will continue maintain a certain level of production volume, for example, 1 million units that I referred to. And this policy remains unchanged as of today.
Thank you very much. Any other question?
よろしいでしょうか。
If not, then although there's some time remaining, we would like to end the meeting as we seem to have run out of questions. So with that, we'd like to conclude the presentation of the financial results. Thank you for your kind attendance. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.